She walked in her own company and was told to wait outside. No one knew the woman they were ignoring was actually their CEO. But what she did next, it didn't just shock her employees, it changed the company forever. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, and out stepped a woman whose presence carried quiet power. Her heels clicked against the polished marble, echoing through the lobby like a metronome of confidence. She was dressed in a tailored navy blue suit, sleek, sharp, and professional. Her posture was perfect, her expression calm yet focused. Anyone watching could tell she was someone important, but strangely no one did. The receptionist at the front desk barely glanced up from her phone. Two security guards by the entrance whispered something to each other and then looked away, smirking. An intern passing by slowed for a moment, as if trying to place her face, then shrugged and kept walking. To them, she was just another visitor. Her name was Vanessa Carter, though nobody in that lobby seemed to recognize it. If they had, they would have known she wasn't just another guest. She was their boss, the founder, the CEO, and in just a few minutes, every single person in that building would remember her name for the rest of their lives. Vanessa approached the reception desk with a polite smile. "Good morning," she said warmly. "I'm here for the 10 a.m. board meeting." The young receptionist didn't return the smile. Without even making eye contact, she sighed and started typing on her computer. "Name?" she asked flatly. "Vanessa Carter." The receptionist froze for half a second, frowning slightly. She typed again, slower this time, as if double-checking. Then she looked up, her tone suddenly sharper. "Oh, the meeting's for executives only. Guests aren't allowed to wait in the lobby. You can, take a seat outside." Vanessa blinked. "Outside?" she repeated softly. "Yes," the receptionist replied, brushing it off. "We'll call you if we need you." The security guard nearby nodded in agreement, already turning away. For a moment, Vanessa just stood there, perfectly still. She could have pulled out her ID card. She could have told them who she was. She could have reminded them that every paycheck in that building had her signature printed on it. But she didn't. Instead, Vanessa smiled faintly, a calm, knowing smile, and nodded. "All right," she said gently. "I'll wait outside." And she did. A few minutes later, she was sitting on a stone bench outside the tall glass doors of her own company's headquarters. The same building she had dreamed about years ago, when she started this business from a small rented office with only 2 employees and a borrowed desk. Now it stood 20 stories high, her name engraved in silver on the main entrance, Carter Innovations. And yet, the very people who worked under that name had just sent her outside to wait like a stranger. The irony wasn't lost on her. As a cool breeze brushed against her face, Vanessa looked up at the company logo glittering above her. A small, sad smile tugged at her lips. "They've forgotten who built this place," she murmured to herself. "But that's all right. I'll remind them, just not with words." And with that thought, Vanessa Carter, the CEO, waited outside her own building, her silence louder than any title she could have spoken. The minutes ticked by, 10, 15, 30. The morning rush outside had slowed, replaced by the quiet hum of traffic and the distant murmur of office chatter filtering through the glass doors. Vanessa sat on the cold stone bench, hands folded neatly on her lap, her phone resting untouched beside her. Every now and then, she glanced up at the building. Her building, its tall windows gleaming in the sunlight. From where she sat, she could see reflections of the people hurrying inside, clutching their coffees, badges swinging, conversations flowing about deadlines and deals. No one stopped. No one even asked if she was okay. A few employees glanced her way. One whispered, another smirked. A young man in a crisp blue shirt even muttered under his breath as he walked past, "She's probably lost." Vanessa heard it, but she didn't react. She just smiled faintly, her gaze distant. It was strange, sitting outside of a place she had spent years building from scratch. Carter Innovations had been born from her small apartment, fueled by her determination and a dream to create a company that valued people above all else. She had fought to make it inclusive, fair, and forward-thinking, a place where every employee's voice mattered. But as she sat there, invisible to the very people who worked for her, She wondered if that vision had been lost somewhere along the way. She exhaled slowly, watching the reflection of the glass doors. Behind them, she could see her executives beginning to gather in the boardroom. Men and women in suits, holding coffee cups, laughing casually. Her leadership team, her partners, the ones who were supposed to know her story, her face, her fight. Yet as she observed from the outside, it became painfully clear they didn't. To them, Vanessa Carter was just a name printed neatly on the corner of their paychecks, a signature on official documents, a distant authority they rarely met in person. A gust of wind brushed past her, flipping the corner of her notebook open. Inside was her agenda for the day, 10 a.m., annual strategy meeting. She chuckled softly. Right on time, she murmured to herself. Then, from behind, a voice called out breathlessly, "Ma'am?" "Ms. Carter." Vanessa turned to see a young man running toward her, his tie slightly crooked, a folder clutched tightly in his hand. It was Daniel, her personal assistant, loyal, hard-working, and one of the few who truly knew her. He stopped in front of her, panting, eyes wide with confusion. "Mom, what are you doing out here? Everyone's waiting for you upstairs. I want to check the conference room, and they thought you hadn't arrived." Vanessa tilted her head, smiling softly. "Apparently not everyone knows that, Daniel." For a moment, Daniel looked speechless. Then his expression hardened, anger flashing in his eyes. "Who told you to wait outside? That's ridiculous." Vanessa placed a gentle hand on his arm. "Calm down, Daniel. It's all right." Then she rose from the bench, slow, deliberate. The quiet authority in her movement made Daniel fall silent instantly. She smoothed the front of her suit, brushed a strand of hair from her face, and looked up at the tall glass doors once more. Her reflection stared back at her, strong, composed, and resolute. This time, when she walked toward the entrance, her steps were heavier, filled with meaning. The receptionist, seeing her return, straightened nervously, realizing something was off. But Vanessa didn't stop. She didn't say a word. Her heels clicked sharply on the marble floor, echoing louder now, each step a reminder of who she was. Vanessa Carter, the woman they'd overlooked, was walking back into her company. Not as a visitor, not as a stranger, but as the leader who built it, ready to remind everyone inside exactly what leadership looks like. When Vanessa entered the boardroom, the air changed instantly. Moments ago, the space buzzed with easy laughter, the clinking of coffee cups, and the rustle of papers. But now silence. Absolute, heavy silence. Every executive in the room froze mid-gesture. Conversations died halfway through words. Pens hovered in the air. All eyes turned toward the doorway, where Vanessa Carter stood, calm, composed, and radiating quiet authority. The same receptionist who had sent her outside stood by the wall, clutching a clipboard. Her face drained of color. She leaned toward her co-worker and whispered shakily, "That's her? She's the CEO." Her co-worker didn't answer. They both just stared, wide-eyed, as Vanessa stepped further into the room. She walked slowly to the head of the long glass table, the sound of her heels echoing through the silence. She set her folder down carefully, not rushing, the deliberate grace of a woman fully aware of her power. "Good morning," she said, her voice calm but firm, every syllable perfectly controlled. "I apologize for being late. I was kept waiting." Her words cut through the air like a blade. No one dared to speak. A few glanced nervously at one another. Others lowered their eyes. The head of HR, a man named Collins, cleared his throat, fumbling with his pen. "Ms. Carter, I didn't realize." Vanessa lifted her hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "That's exactly the problem," she said softly, but her tone carried the weight of a hammer striking steel. She let the silence linger for a moment longer, walking slowly around the table, her gaze moving from face to face. Each executive shifted uncomfortably under her calm, piercing stare. "I started this company," Vanessa began, her voice steady, "with one simple goal: to build something where everyone is treated with dignity. Where respect doesn't depend on how someone looks, talks, or dresses." Her words hung in the air, sharp and deliberate. As she spoke, her footsteps echoed against the marble floor. She stopped near the window, where sunlight spilled across the table, highlighting her profile strong, elegant, unshaken. Then she turned her gaze toward the back of the room, where the receptionist now stood trembling, eyes glistening. Vanessa didn't glare or scold. Instead, her expression softened, almost sad. "Today," she said gently, "I was judged before I even said a word." She paused, letting the truth settle deep in everyone's chest. Imagine how our clients feel when they walk through these doors. Imagine how our visitors, our partners, must feel when they're treated as less than they deserve. You could hear a pin drop. A few executives looked down at their hands, ashamed. One woman near the end of the table quietly closed her laptop, realizing how much she had to rethink. Vanessa returned to the head of the table, placing both hands lightly on the surface. Her voice dropped lower, calmer, yet somehow more powerful. "If this," she said, sweeping her eyes across the room, "is how we treat our own CEO, then what does that say about our culture?" No one answered. No one could. The question wasn't meant for a response. It was a mirror. And in that moment, everyone in that room was forced to see themselves reflected clearly for the first time. Vanessa sat down at the table's head, the rightful seat she had earned, and folded her hands. "Well," she said softly, breaking the silence, "shall we begin the meeting?" And with that, every person in the room knew. This was not going to be just another meeting. It was going to be a reckoning. After the meeting, Vanessa didn't raise her voice. She didn't fire anyone on the spot. There was no shouting, no anger, just a quiet, composed resolve that filled the entire floor. That silence was louder than any punishment could have been. Instead, she made one simple announcement. "Everyone, auditorium, now." Within 15 minutes, the entire company, from interns to senior executives, was gathered in the main hall. The chatter was nervous, uncertain. Some employees whispered, trying to guess what was happening. Others already knew and dreaded what was coming. When Vanessa stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent again. The spotlight cast a soft glow on her as she stood before hundreds of her own employees, the very people who had walked past her that morning without a glance. She didn't need a microphone to command attention. Her presence was enough. Her eyes swept across the crowd, calm, steady, almost gentle. Then she spoke. "I want to tell you all something," she began, her voice even. "This morning, a woman came to this building. She sat outside for over half an hour. No one offered her a seat. No one asked if she needed help. Some of you walked by her and laughed." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A few gasps rippled through the room. Vanessa took a small pause, then continued softly. "That woman was me." The reaction was instant. Gasps, murmurs, hands flying to mouths in disbelief. "I was the woman sitting outside this morning," Vanessa repeated, her tone steady, "waiting to be let in. And no one, even asked if I needed help." The guilt in the room was palpable. Some employees lowered their heads, unable to meet her eyes. Others simply froze, realizing that their silence, their inaction, had spoken volumes. Vanessa let the silence breathe for a few seconds before she continued. "This isn't about me," she said. "This is about what we've become. We talk about respect. We post about diversity. We celebrate inclusion, but we don't live it when it truly matters." Her voice gained quiet strength as she walked across the stage, gesturing toward the large wall behind her, where the company's core values were proudly displayed in bold letters. Integrity, equality, empathy. She looked back at the crowd. "Words mean nothing," she said firmly, "if our actions betray them." The room stayed silent. No one dare move. Then Vanessa did something no one expected. She smiled. A small, genuine smile. "And because of this moment," she continued, "we're going to change." That day, she announced a new company-wide initiative called See Beyond. Its purpose was simple yet powerful: to teach every employee to recognize unconscious bias, to see beyond first impressions, and to rebuild the company's culture from the ground up. Every person, from the newest intern to the oldest executive, would take part. No exceptions. And the receptionist who had told Vanessa to wait outside? Vanessa didn't fire her. In fact, she did the opposite. She mentored her. The young woman was terrified when Vanessa called her in. Her voice trembled as she apologized, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't know. I'm so sorry, Miss Carter." Vanessa simply placed a hand on her shoulder and said softly, "You made a mistake. What matters now is what you do next." That single moment, not of punishment, but of grace, became the turning point for the entire company. Because from that day forward, everyone at Carter Innovations would remember that lesson. Kindness and awareness begin not with policy, but with people. 1 year later, Carter Innovations didn't just look different, it felt different. The cold, mechanical energy that once filled the lobby had been replaced with warmth and welcome. Where there used to be silence and stiff nods, there were smiles, handshakes, and greetings that felt real. Visitors stepping through the glass doors were met with genuine kindness. The scent of fresh flowers filled the air. Employees moved with purpose, not out of fear, but out of pride. And at the front desk stood a familiar face, the young woman who had once told Vanessa to wait outside. Now, she was Emma Reed, the company's guest relations lead. Her voice carried calm confidence as she trained new hires. Every Monday morning, she led a workshop titled "See People, Not Positions." She often began each session by saying, "I once made the biggest mistake of my career, but the best leader I've ever known turned it into my greatest lesson." The See Beyond program had become a company-wide movement. What started as internal training quickly spread across industries. Other organizations reached out, asking how Carter Innovations transformed its culture so completely. Soon, universities, nonprofits, and even government offices began adapting Vanessa's model, a simple framework rooted in empathy, awareness, and accountability. But Vanessa never took credit. Whenever journalists asked about her viral moment, she'd smile and say, "It's not about a CEO being mistreated. It's about a culture that forgot how to see people and how we chose to fix it." Her humility struck a chord worldwide. Her video speech about respect and leadership was viewed over 20 million times online. But inside the company, her impact went far beyond the screens. She walked the hallways daily, greeting employees by name, stopping to listen to their ideas, and thanking them for their work. The executives who had once sat in silence now volunteered for mentorship programs, sharing time with interns and new hires. That autumn, during the company's anniversary celebration, the atmosphere was electric. Banners lined the stage with the company's new motto, "See Beyond, Lead with Heart." When Vanessa stepped on stage, thunderous applause erupted. Employees rose to their feet, not because they were told to, but because they wanted to. The woman who had once been ignored outside her own doors now stood before hundreds who truly understood her vision. Vanessa smiled, pausing to let the moment sink in. 1 year ago, she began, "I waited outside my own building. But today, no one, not even a stranger, waits alone at our doors." The audience erupted again, clapping, whistling, some even tearing up. She waited for the noise to quiet, then added gently, "Respect isn't something you give only to those who look powerful. True respect is shown when you have nothing to gain." Those words echoed through the hall, bouncing off the glass walls, settling deep in every heart present. When the applause faded, the entire team stood united, not as workers beneath a CEO, but as people who had learned to see one another differently. From that day forward, Vanessa Carter wasn't just a name on the building. She became a living example of grace, strength, and leadership that would inspire an entire generation to lead with empathy. Moral of the story: never judge people by appearances. The person you overlook today might be the one who built the very world you stand in. Before we dive into this unbelievable story, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell. You don't want to miss what happens next.